Okay, we're recording. All right, welcome to the back to the podcast, everyone. We're still in the spooky season right now, and I know there's a lot of great things going on in film and stuff like that. I know Shelby Oaks is coming out, which I definitely want to check out. I know Five Nights at Freddy's is coming out in December, and a lot of great horror films also being released this time of the year, especially with AMC and Fear Fest and Freeform's the 31 Days of Halloween, which I remember back then it used to be called 13 Nights of Halloween when Freeform used to be called ABC Family. Y'all
Hey,
feel old
family.
yet?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, this night we're gonna do something that's a little bit I don't even know how you describe it. Something different, something I don't think anybody really talks about. We're calling it one versus three. What we're talking about is in a collection that I've seen, there's only been three film series, though Seuss wants to bring up two more, and we'll probably be debating towards the end of this. But the main three that I've seen among the horror community and YouTube analysis and all that, Halloween, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and The Exorcist, there have always been this debate of which has the better film, the first film or the third film. So we thought we could start this off by talking about first Halloween, which is obviously there's Halloween, and then there's Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Both very different films because if you remember from the beginning, especially when I think we did our Halloween episode a long time ago. I still get a crack out of that one, especially around this time. But Halloween and Halloween 3 again are different films because back in the day, John Carpenter, after he filmed Halloween the original or during it, I don't remember. All we just know is that he thought about, you know what, let's have this as an anthology series. And if y'all don't know what an anthology series is, it's just basically like a collection of stories that are just centered around like the title and stuff like that. So Halloween was always meant to be the title, but each movie was supposed to be a different story. But I mean, after the first film, we all know the story on that one. Fans wanted to see Michael Myers again, or not even really fans, just like the film spectators of 1978 were waiting years to wonder if there's going to be more Michael Myers and stuff like that. John Carpenter said, okay, we're going to do one more Michael Myers movie. Well, we know how that turned out. And then we're going to continue on with what I wanted to do. Then Halloween 3 Season of the Witch came out. It was a whole different storyline. Michael Myers is like an in-universe film. So it's almost like our universe. Everything that happens is in our universe. And Halloween 1978 is just a movie within that universe, if that makes sense to anybody. So Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is not a slasher film. It has nothing to do with Michael Myers. It's infamously well known as the one Halloween film that does not have Michael Myers on it. And we're not going to go over the plot of these films because we did that. Y'all could go check that out when it was Jesus and I, and then it was our friend Kevin. We're just going to talk about like why fans have said either Halloween or Halloween 3 are the better, or which one's the better film of the entire series. Though a lot of people will always say, yes, John Carpenter's 1978 is a classic. Why people are leaning towards Halloween 3 a lot recently, I could give you something. I like to call it Michael Myers fatigue. You get what I mean? It's been 13 films. We just had the whole trilogy, the David Gordon Green trilogy, not too long ago. And at this point, I think we're all like fatigued on Michael Myers. Like, can we get another film? Like, I think now we're at that point where it's like, can we go to what John Carpenter really wanted, which is an anthology film? But
If I could add something to that, I'd like
yeah,
to say that not only is that we're like the fan base and everybody who's just enamored by the franchise is already tired of just having the same thing over and over again. Because I mean that's just how it is. That's how IPs work. I think streaming has a lot to contribute to the idea that hey, everybody wants to see something different now. I mean, streaming, you've had like actual, I think if I'm correct or not, I mean I'm not sure. Somebody can correct me out there, but we have like franchises that are now being made in these streaming sites that don't necessarily connect back to the previous installment. It's like a TV show. Like if you have a TV show, you may only have just one central component that comes out in every episode. That could be a character, like a protagonist of the entire show, or that could just be a theme. Think of it like Goosebumps, right? I mean, Goosebumps, there's not really a central character in every episode. It's just the idea that, hey, there's supernatural forces that act upon something and they impact the story. So it's kind of like how we're seeing it now. A lot of shows will have this kind of element. Doesn't have to be an actual physical person. It can be some sort of theme that ties the entire show together. And because of streaming, I think that contributes to the idea of, hey, maybe we can see that in film now. Like back in the 80s, it's like Carpenter and Deborah Hill, they both kind of pioneered that for horror. They were like, hey, we need to start thinking about outside the box. Like maybe people just don't want to be seeing Michael all the time. Maybe they don't want the the brother sister angle. Maybe they just want something new. And of course, back then we weren't receptive to it, but nowadays people are now starting to open up. At some point, if we're gonna once we get to like the actual debatable points between each film, I like to kind of chime in on that. I'm one of those people who actually have now appreciate 3 for what it is. I think it really stands out and is actually a pretty good film when you remove the mask of everything else. Like, because yeah, obviously there were some ideas they tried, they didn't. Whatever. I'll go into more detail then. But just to wrap that up, not only fatigue, but I think the current media outlet has influenced our way of viewing IPs.
Yeah. I think some of like the negatives that came around Halloween 3. I mean, other than like, oh, this is the non-Michael Myers film. Again, infamously known for being called that one, which I don't think it's fair at all. I used to think that, and then like you said, I've grown to appreciate 3. I kind of had a different mindset now than last time we spoke about Halloween and Halloween 3. What was it, like 3 years ago? I think it's now in the top 5 for me. I know some people will have it as the top 2, which is Halloween and Halloween 3. Yeah, I think it's really because okay, another negative aspect that people tend to talk about is the big one, which is Tom Atkins' character, who's, I believe he was already in his 40s when he did this film. And by the way, Tom Atkins, who starred in the film, this is not his first John Carpenter film. He did The Fog, which I bet a lot of people didn't even know that was a remake. The original one came out in 1980, was, you guessed it, Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Atkins. The same story. I haven't seen the original, and I've only seen a little bit of the remake. To my point, the biggest like negative people have is that the character of Tom Atkins and then the girl, I forgot her name. I just forgot the character's name. Do you remember the character's name from Halloween 3, the girl, or at least the actress? Because I only remember Tom Atkins.
I can't really say for sure. I don't actually remember the name. It's not up. It's not in my current mindset. I mean, I just remember, of course, they had, what is it? Nancy.
Yeah.
From the first film, just to play a different character, or play the estranged wife of Tom Atkins' character.
Yeah. There was also, I mean, because that's actually how the start of an anthology film or an anthology series go. If you've ever seen any, like a series or film, if you don't know, think like, I should have used this as an example. I didn't think about this. Think of like the Twilight Zone. That's an anthology show. Did I say Twilight Zone? Twilight Zone, sorry. Or American Horror Story. You know how American Horror Story, if you all seen it, has some of the same actors come pretty much every film. So that's how an anthology series or an anthology film tends to be sometimes. So they had obviously Nancy Loomis, I think that was the actress's name, as the estranged wife of Tom Atkins. Jamie Lee Curtis came.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at it right now.
Oh, okay.
So Stacey Nelson played Ellie. That was her.
Yeah, Jamie Lee Curtis.
And then
I remember that.
Yes, what was she doing? Was she the voice of of the town, like telling the people on the radio? I mean, sorry, the speakers that it's curfew.
Yeah,
right.
And then of course we got Richard Warlock, or Dick Warlock, if you want to be cruel. And yeah, For those that don't know, Dick Warlock played Michael Myers in Halloween 2. He played the robotic henchman of man, I forgot who's the owner of Silver Shamrock, the villain of this entire series.
I believe his name is Dan O'Hurley.
Dan O'Hurley, but it wasn't like Connor or something.
You mean like the character, right?
Yeah.
O'Connell? No,
O'Connell?
wait, hold on. I'm looking at this right now. Hold on.
That,
No,
I just know he
it's
was
Cochran. So we were close. It's
Cochran.
Cochran.
Okay, sorry. I knew it was like a very, very Irish name. I think what's getting people a lot more recently as I think about it of Halloween 3. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back to everything. One of the biggest negatives is obviously that the two characters are like 20 to 30 years apart from each other. And there's the infamous sex scene in that film. And then especially because like Tom Atkins' character even asked her like, how old are you? Like during the moment. And yeah, there's that. The movie does have a little bit of slow burn, but I mean, so did the original, because the original was a very low budget indie film that most people tend to forget. But to my point, I think a reason being is that people are growing a lot more to Halloween 3 recently is because it actually fits to the Halloween theme of the film, or at least around the holiday. Because remember, Halloween, I mean, the writers have always argued that originally it was supposed to be called The Babysitter's Murder, and then somebody changed it to Halloween, and then some say, oh no, that's a fake story. Who really knows from there? All we know is that like Halloween was always intended to be surfaced around the holiday or about the holiday. So Halloween, the original 1978, was supposed to be about just a guy stalking a babysitter and her friends, and then boom, there's the murders happen. It ends with him getting shot and them disappearing. Halloween 3 Season of Witch is more about the folklore of horror, or the folklore of the entire series or the entire holiday. I'm sorry. I think that's where we can give Halloween 3 a lot more of its flowers, because I've never seen a lot of like horror films or Halloween films. And I mean like just in general. I don't mean like horror Halloween. I mean like, Twitches, or not Twitches, but Hocus Pocus and Sleepy Hollow and stuff like that. They mention All Hallows Eve, but they never mention like the origin of what it was supposed to mean. So that's where I was like, oh, okay, so if I think about it thoroughly, Halloween 3 is more about like the origin of the holiday and what they do. Scare factor. If we think about it, Halloween 3 is a lot more scarier than Halloween, or at least the ending, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. So like, don't mean to cut you off, Gilbert. But if I could add something at least for the ending.
Yeah.
So let's look at this objectively. You have the original, which is already terrifying in itself. I mean, it's like the equivalency of back then in the actual time frame. Like, let's imagine the people who were watching this in 78 or 77. At that time, the idea of serial killers out in the open was at a high. So when you see something like that, like a serial killer, like if the original title was Babysitter Murder, this guy got scot-free. I mean, he escaped. So it's like, wow, this guy's out there still somewhere. And it's all invigorated by the ending of how he's just breathing in every location we've already seen in this film, at least in the houses. So it's like, yeah, it's like giving you the impression this guy's still out there. So as soon as you leave the theater, watch out, But then you have the third film. As a former teacher, this really stood out to me when I had finally watched it. Again, like I watched it last year. Can you imagine if you were in your parents' shoes? You know about the whole celebration happening. You know the giveaway that's going to be happening on TV. Every single kid who's probably going to get either a bucket load of candy, like a la Willy Wonka Chocolate Factory style, or get millions of dollars. So the parents obviously are tuning in with their children. Imagine all those kids across the United States. Of course, it seemed like it was only televised in the US, but who knows? What if this was televised across the globe, like in India, Russia, China, at the same time? Every single kid, if that commercial stayed on, as Tom Atkins was telling every single provider to like turn it off, and that one channel decided not to, who knows if they turned it off on time, or that meant that every single kid, hundreds, we're talking maybe thousands, more than that, millions of kids died. Like that's crazy. If you think about it, it's wild. It's scary to think about that. And I know I think that is obviously the intention Deborah and John wanted the audience to feel at the end. Did he stop it on time? Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, people are going to be, or and when I mean people, I mean studios are going to be power hungry and be like, you know what? Let's decide to make a sequel to this one. Please don't, because then that just ruins the experience. And plus, that's just going to be like, imagine the opening of that. Like, if I was to do that, imagine like the opening is like, well, when did this film came out? 1983, right? Or 82. So
I
just
think it was 82. Yeah.
okay, so just imagine like the film opens up Halloween 1982, and you're just seeing a hospital full of like kids dead with like parents screaming and stuff like that. And obviously, the big argument here about the whole thing is, I mean, his sister said like this was probably televised internationally. The other thing most people are what try to decipher about this is that like don't miss the big giveaway at 7 o'clock. And some people are like, well, which time zone are we talking about? The Eastern time zone or the Western time zone? You know what I mean? Because if it was just on one side, I don't remember which is East and West, which is like New York and Florida, and then which is California. All I know is one side of the map is definitely going to get the notification that, hey, a bunch of kids are dying in a hospital on this side of the map. Make sure they're not wearing those masks. But I mean, it could also be like, so what is it? 7 o'clock. I'm trying to remember. I'm not good with East and West, guys. I only know North and South. So let's just say 7 o'clock, New York, New Jersey, Florida time. Assuming that's all the same time zone. It's that time, and then probably like 5 o'clock Central and 4 o'clock. However the time works, guys. I'm not one of those folks that focuses on like the different time zones and all that. But what we're saying is majority, only one side of the globe or one side of the US could have an epidemic of dead children from, these masks, while the Central and the other time zone, I only know Central, by the way, hears about it and they're like, make sure these kids don't wear the mask. The thing though is that like for people on one side of the globe, or even in general, it's kind of hard to get those masks off in time because you don't know, like, if they die in an instant or if they die, or it takes a matter of seconds or minutes to die. I mean, we did get that one scene where the boy dies wearing the mask as they were testing it out, but that could just be a test. What if like it's just an explosion or something? Because remember, there was this scene, by the way, Gorefest. Obviously, this one has a lot more of it too. But I was gonna say, you saw that one scene where this woman like is picking at it, and you see this beam of light just hit her face, and her face is just like melted. Her lips are gone too.
Yeah, unmasked.
Yeah. Okay. So if we were gonna lay this out before we go on break, I would say, look, nostalgia wise, yes, Halloween 1978 is always gonna be there, my number one. But, and I'm gonna be honest, guys, and I think I'm gonna lose people. Like I said, I will always love Halloween 1978. One of my top 5 best horror films of all time. Technically, number 2. Number 1's The Witch, if you guys want to know that. But what I'm trying to say is I love Halloween, but I'm going to admit it's overrated. Like, it is overrated. It's always been talked about. Michael Myers is obviously the famous, serial killer. Because it's like if somebody mentions anything negative about Halloween, the whole world just like loses their mind. I feel like Heath Ledger was that meme. And everyone loses their mind. Like, that's pretty much how. Yeah, I love it. It's overrated though, but I'll still love it. I mean, unless you have the same thought.
I mean, I gotta tell you, I still think it's the greatest horror film ever made. So, I mean, unfortunately, I can't really say the same sentiment about overhatedness or overratedness. But yeah, I mean, we cannot give full credit. Well, sorry, we can give Halloween full credit as a contributor to the slasher genre, but we cannot ignore what follows it. We can't ignore the one outlier of the whole franchise when it's the one that actually stands out for both good and bad.
But I will admit that Halloween 3 has become a lot more underrated, and now again people are liking it more. I think it's actually getting more re-releases in the theaters than the original. I remember I saw the original in theaters in 2020 because remember back then we had the very larger epidemic. And most movies were not being shown because of that. So most movie theaters decided to re-release films. And then that's when like a lot of theaters decided to re-release classic horror films, Halloween being one of them. It's such a thrill to watch it in theaters, actually. But now they're showing a lot more with Season of the Witch. But like I said, nostalgia wise, I love Halloween. But you know what? If we're looking at like gore and scare factors and even around the holiday, Halloween 3 kind of beats the cake, because remember, Halloween is more just takes place on Halloween. Same thing with all the other movies that have Michael Myers in it. It just takes place on Halloween. He's just roaming around. But Halloween Season of the Witch is more about the holiday. So that's where Halloween 3 kicks the edge. Story-wise, I mean, y'all know me. I go for what's more believable, even though, yes, Halloween, these are fiction films. But story-wise and what's more believable, yes, Halloween, the original, takes the cake. But I mean, people will always like have this and be like, yeah, I mean, I prefer Halloween 3 because it's not the one with Michael Myers. Which I respect, though, because again, we kind of have that fatigue of it. Or some people will watch the original because it started off this whole event of slashers. Though some people will say, Black Christmas or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the one that started the slasher genre. But Halloween, the original, kind of like set up the rules. Like something that if you've ever seen Scream, you know what the rules are with Jamie Kennedy's character. But yeah, that's the first franchise that has the 1 versus 3, where fans will be like, I will always love the first film, and then fans will be like, well, you need to give the third film a chance because it's actually a pretty great storyline. But we're gonna take a quick break right now, and then when we get back, we're gonna talk about another film where fans aren't really divided amongst the series. It's more of like the inner fan. I'll get back to you when we get off a break. So we're heading into break. All right, we're coming back. All right. Our next series that we're going to talk about in our 1 versus 3 film is A Nightmare on Elm Street, and then A Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warrior, which is, again, the third film of the entire series. What I was trying to get was like, it's not divided amongst fans or whatever. It's just more like between each fan of, or from each fan of the entire series. A Nightmare on Elm Street and A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, fans themselves are conflicted, like, oh man, which one's better, the first or the third film? Even I'm sometimes like that. First of all, Jesus, have you actually seen Dream Warriors before we continue?
I will be honest. When I received it, okay, so I received the box set. I'm sure I sent you a picture of that. So the two films I mostly remember, besides Freddy versus Jason, I'm just thinking of like that's the obvious one. It's 1 and 5. So I still remember a bit of things from 3, because I mean, how could you not? So there's some of the best scenes of the franchise are in that third installment. But overall, like as a film and I guess the plot, I'll be honest, I'd have to sit down and watch it again. But I do like if we're still contributing to this, I mean, I guarantee you, I'm still gonna bring up some of those moments that I remember very closely. So it still works out. But yeah.
Yeah. So in case you might have forgotten, it obviously takes place in a mental institute where the last set of kids of Elm Street whose parents were the ones that burnt down Freddy Krueger, they're the last set, and their deaths is what Freddy needs to be whole again, or something like that, or to enact his revenge, I would say. Because if you know the story of Freddy Krueger, everyone, you know that he was a murderer of children. He was supposed to be a lot more, but Wes Craven, R.I.P. It's actually been 10 years since he passed away. Wes Craven decided to change the storyline to him just being a murderer instead of both a murderer and a predator. Because there seems to be a lot of that going on in the 80s. There's still a lot of that going on now. But were you gonna say something?
I mean, I guess what I could do is don't mean to be like this person who says actually, but I did watch the first one again last week, and Not entirely sure. I think I remember distinctly Nancy's mom when she was explaining why they had to do it. I don't think they ever mentioned that he was a predator. I just think they mentioned him as a child murderer.
Yeah, that was originally what was decided to have both of that, but he kept it as a child murderer. But obviously the remake kind of went in that direction. I mean, on a side note, which by the way, like again, the remake wasn't that great. I don't blame Jackie Earl Haley because he was given the role, and it's kind of hard to pick up a mantle of a famous character, especially from Robert England. So that's what I want
Yeah.
to get off my chest. But what you were gonna say something else?
No, sorry. I was just going to agree with you with that.
Yeah, but and trust me, the remake is not the worst of the series. I mean, the series has some pretty bad ones. The first and the third film are kind of the what connects the two, mostly because of Nancy, played by Heather Langen. Do you remember how to pronounce her name?
Camp.
Langenkamp. Okay, which Jesus and I are probably going to try to meet at a King of Horror convention in San Antonio. Anyway, Jesus and I were planning on meeting her along with another horror legend, Kane Hodder. Who knows where this goes? But to our point, aside from Laurie Strode and Sally Hardenstein, has not Heather, but Nancy is the well, one, she's the goat of the final girls, and two, because if you actually ever think about it, I think she's the first final girl that's ever fought back against the character. If you ever actually look. Yeah, because if you look back, especially with the Friday the 13th movies, they all just try to run away, which is the smart thing to do, first of all. But Nancy, yeah, she's got the balls to say, no, I'm going after this one. And she's the smartest of them all, too. But I think that's why people also lean towards the third film a lot more, is because it's like she's passing on the torch to the next final girl, which is Patricia Arquette's character. I forgot her name. So unfortunately, she doesn't come back for the next film. But I remember sitting at I was at a convention in Dallas called Texas Frightmare, and it was it was a panel of the Dream Warriors and it's not only that, Heather Langenkamp is also the first Heather Langenkamp became a final girl herself because Wes Craven's A New Nightmare made a meta version of the film to where Freddy is an entity that Wes Craven had to, I guess, and it's been a while since I've seen that. All I remember is it's definitely top 3 for like Freddy Krueger films. But if we take Freddy's what was it called? If we take away New Nightmare away from it as being part of the franchise, it's actually a great film on its own, separate from the franchise. But part of a Freddy Krueger film, it's definitely top 3 for me with that, Nightmare on Elm Street, and the Dream Warriors. Something I found out interesting is that a character named Kincaid, he's a black character, and at that panel he said, "If you ever look at the history of horror films, I am the first black man to ever survive a horror film." Which I think that was pretty interesting. The sad part is that in the next film, he does die. He was actually the first one to get killed. So, yes, sometimes the trope of the black man always dies first doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen, unfortunately. But I remember some people were like, if they should ever touch this film again, which if you've ever read the news and all that, that's going to be unlikely. Even then, even if like things surrounding the series isn't making the news, which it is now, y'all can look that up. We also still have to have the fact that Robert Englund is approaching 80 at this point. And you can't really expect him to go back as Freddy Krueger. Unfortunately, I think Freddy versus Jason might be his last performance. And as much as I don't want that to happen, because I think he deserves a better send-off, it's kind of hard given his age and the fact that I don't think there's much he can do. However, he is getting a star on the Walk of Fame on Halloween, so that's very fitting. But I think like what makes Freddy Krueger like one of the scariest characters in all of horror, especially because he was called like the scariest horror film character, is because he appears in your dreams, which is like, I mean, people sleep, and yes, there are people who can die in their sleep, but that's scary. That's a scary thought, to be honest with you. And Freddy Krueger can just invade them. And dude, it's okay. You know what? I agree. I actually agree. He actually is pretty scary. I'm not gonna lie. He never gave me nightmares. I was never scared of him. What?
Imagine if like you put away, if you're thinking spiritually here, you put away the the idea of it's he's like an entity or he can be this. I like to see him as a demon. I mean, he was a person just like you and I, did some very horrible things, paid the price for it, but he ascended to a whole different, very, very, very bastardly idea, concept. So now he's not just what he used to be. The fact that he can enter any person's mind at any given moment because he's been given that power is really terrifying. Especially with the seventh film, because that's how it kind of feels like to me. It feels like Wes Craven decided he's not a character from a fictional world; he's a demon.
Yeah, I think if they were gonna do a legacy sequel, they should do it. Well, they kind of did a short film based off the new Nightmare timeline, which is actually really cool. They just couldn't get Robert Englund back. But if they do a legacy, which God forbid, but people are power hungry. But like I said, if you've read the news lately, might not actually happen. But to my point, if they decide to do that, they should do it based off the Dream Warriors, because I mean, I don't know. Always thought if they do Freddy versus Jason again, that it should be a legacy sequel to not Freddy versus Jason, the first film, but like a legacy sequel to A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 or just A Nightmare on Elm Street, as well as whatever Jason film is out there, whether it's 2, 3, 4, whichever one it is. That's what I think they should do, because then it actually brings the protagonist of the two films together. Because I think that's where Freddy vs. Jason failed. Is yes, they've had a whole new set of characters, but do you really care about them? Because Laurie in this film is not Nancy, and she's not man. It's hard to think of a really great Friday the 13th final girl. The only one I could think of is
you could honestly say one of the best ones is either I forget her name, or at least even the actress's name is the final girl in part 2.
That's what I was thinking
and
of.
Final girl in part 7.
Okay, part 7. Well, unfortunately, I think the actress in part 7 died like not too long ago. Maybe it would be interesting though, because and we're probably going to end up going to Jason during this, but because if you think about it, it would be interesting to see Nancy like team up with a different final girl. Obviously, it's not going to be Laurie, because like not Laurie Freddy vs. Jason. I mean like Laurie from Halloween, because David Akkad, not only was he fulfilling his father's contract to make sure that Michael doesn't die, I think part of the contract was Michael cannot interact with a slasher from a different film. And I think fans have wanted that to happen, but we don't think it's ever going to happen. But the thing is that like Freddy versus Jason has been a thought since Jason Goes to Hell. But to my point, it would be very interesting that like if they bring Heather back for a legacy sequel with one of the Friday final girls. But back to the point, if we wonder like why people have been liking the third film a lot more than the first film, because people are like, well, come on, the first film is what started Freddy Krueger in the first place. Yes, but the third film gives something that not only have I seen in the series, but I haven't seen anything in any other slasher film. And if that's these kids are actually working together. You watch the same slasher films over and over again, and it's the same kids that are getting drunk, getting high, having sex in the midst of their friends getting slaughtered by a madman, while these kids are like, no, we got to work together to stop Freddy. And it's interesting because like they're like, man, in my dreams, because they all have like troubled paths in their lives, and in their dreams it's an escape. But since there's like an entity out there that is disrupting them, their escape is like no more. So now with them together, it can like build up to like, man, we could stop this. And the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm thinking like, okay, you know what? Maybe I do prefer Dream Warriors over the first film, because I mean, hold on. If I think about this, Freddy in the original Nightmare on Elm Street is scarier because just the way he's lit, and it's because it's the first time we've ever gotten Freddy Krueger. So he's scarier in the first film. And I think even in New Nightmares, he's not as scary, because I think Dream Warriors is where you actually get Freddy. Like, and what I mean by Freddy, I mean like the personality, the jokes and all that, especially that one line where he kills that one teenager. I'm pretty sure that scene might remember you with the TV. Welcome to prime time.
Welcome to prime time.
Oh man. So that's where like we actually start getting like this whole like jokes aside, or Freddy telling jokes. You get what I mean? So I guess now as I talk about it a lot more, I think I'm leaning towards Dream Warriors a lot more. And I think I want to talk about Freddy a little bit more because last year we never had a chance to talk about its 40th anniversary. But I think it's a really great film. that I think y'all should check out. 1, 1, 3, and definitely part 7. All the other films are, I mean, they're not copy and paste, well, kind of, but it's just the same thing with the slash film, unless you got something.
You just tell it like it is. I mean, it's basically copy and paste. But but every single one of them has their own niche flavor, if you know what I mean. Every one of them has something that makes them stand out.
Yeah, yeah. And then the other thing is, and I think sometimes I wish that they ended at the third film, and the reason being is because like Nancy does die in the third film, but she dies doing what she can to stop Freddy, which I think like continuing on kind of dishonors the legacy of Nancy, which was obviously fixed with New Nightmare. With the first film, it's always going to be remembered as Johnny Depp's debut. In case y'all ever wanted to know, Johnny Depp's debut was A Nightmare on Elm Street. Famous kill was obviously him getting sucked in the bed and that fountain of blood just shooting to the ceiling. Though I actually know the most underwhelming kill was obviously the boyfriend of the first girl, but the famous kill was the bedroom scene, if that's where you're gonna go with.
I mean, I was gonna tell you, as a kid when I first watched this film, that scene was something like, for me as a kid, really terrifying, to the point where I was having nightmares. Because the fact that you have Tina, this first girl, being dragged up to the ceiling like Exorcist style is that's scary as heck. And after watching it, it still gives me goosebumps.
Yeah, and I think first films are always good at setting up what we're going to come to, which is something I didn't talk about in Halloween. But again, that's also because Halloween was intended to be an anthology series. So with that, I would say more of like what John Carpenter, I always have a struggle saying his name. I think what he was trying to do was like, okay, what story is going to live up to the previous film? Which again, we never got that. Here, it's like, what are we going to live up to Nightmare on Elm Street? We already know part 2. There was a lot going on. That we're not going to get into that much, but let's just say, I mean, if you know the story, you know the story about the final guy of that film. I'm not talking about like in the film. I'm talking about like the filming. You get what I mean? It was supposed to be like outing, I guess you could say, our main character or our main star.
If we're going to be over here and bring up a little politic, this is basically every liberal's, almost the majority of every liberal is going to say he is the best final girl.
I think there was a documentary called that. Like I think it was called Scream Queen, about his story, about like him getting outed and stuff like that. And I like how I said we weren't going to get into it, but we actually ended up doing so. But the third film, I mean, going back to the third film, again, if I think about it, yeah, I think I prefer it a lot more. I know you haven't, it's been a while since you've seen it. So maybe if you watch it again, you might have a different perspective. I mean, you'll probably still say maybe the first film, but who knows? We might watch it together.
That might be the case. I am slowly watching these. Like it's obviously the month of October, and I decided this month of this year is going to be Nightmare themed. So I'll be watching them once every week. I think this weekend, I'll hopefully get to watch the second film, see how that goes, and then the following week we'll watch 3.
Yeah. One thing I didn't get to mention is that, like, if we could talk about these films, like in what's the word meme wise for Halloween, it was always that like what is it that's what I'm talking about. That's why he's the GOAT. Halloween 3 tends to get the I mean, it's all right, I guess. Yeah. But I think I saw one where it says, "Hey, that's pretty good," when they were talking about Halloween 3. But for Nightmare on Elm Street, it gets that's what I'm talking about. And then the third film gets the Homelander, which I'm probably going to meet at Big Texas Comic Con this year. So keep an eye out for that one. But not Halloween 3, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 gets the, it was perfect. Perfect. So that's my new detail. I think something I should ask Anthony Starr. How does it feel having that one line as like an essential meme talking about films and stuff? He probably might not know that, but we'll see. But I don't know. It's hard. Like Aziz and I you and I are probably gonna have to watch those at least like 1 and 3. We could probably watch 2 as well. But
I mean, we could watch 1 and 3, but then at least if we'll watch 1. If we can try to watch 1 and 3, we'll watch 1 and 3. But I would really like to see part 6 because of the glasses. I've never seen it in 3D, and since this came I have pairs of glasses and actually have enough for 5 of us. So even
Oh,
if
really?
we get Josh into this, if he wanted to come join along, we could, all 4 of us have glasses, and we'll get to see that and see how
Yeah.
it looks.
Yeah. And I know we were talking about Jason earlier. Jesus wanted to bring up Friday the 13th. Well, we could talk about it briefly, but as an honorable mention. But like, as far as I can tell you, amongst horror fans, amongst YouTube videos and stuff like that, I've never seen a lot of arguments on Friday the 13th and Friday the 13th Part 3, as like which one is better. And that's just mostly because like from rankings I've seen, they've never really made the top 5, if they have, they're never together in the top 5. And that's because Friday the 13th, we were talking about copy and paste on everything. This is a legit copy and paste. Every film is pretty much after the first film is copy and paste. They try to go different route with Kane Hodder's films. They copied and paste, but they added on different stories and stuff like that. Like Part 7, which is actually a really good one. I like. They call it Friday the 13th with Dollar Store Carry, Friday the 13th on a Boat, which is Part 8, I believe, which is considered like the worst one of King Hodder. Jason Goes to Hell, and then Jason X, it's Jason X, which is the last King Hodder film. Should have been Freddy versus Jason. Nothing against Ken Kersinger, but should have been Freddy versus Jason.
Should have been King Hodder.
Yeah. But I was gonna say Jason X is one of those so bad it's good kind of films. Which, by the way, yes, we originally proposed we were gonna do The Room next time we met, but we're pushing that to November just so y'all would know. But I've never really seen much arguments of which one's better, the first or the third. I mean, I would say maybe yes.
I haven't actually seen any of myself either. I mean, as I was preparing for this episode, you're on the ball. I haven't seen any comparisons. Oh, like saying, I mean, every one of them have something to go for. It's usually people just clamoring of which one is the best film, and some people will straight up say, I like Part 5. It's surprising. Like, like that's another thing of can of worms. And some people will still tell us, well, if you separate one, because it's just like Halloween, the first one is the one it's the one that kickstarted it. You can't compare it with any of their sequels. And so if you remove it and go just straight to Jason sequel films, everyone will always have a different opinion. So you can't really pinpoint it. But I will say this: I don't know how the 3D was back then in the 80s. When this movie came out in theaters. I'm talking about Part 3.
Muy mal, that's what it was.
That's probably what it was.
Yeah.
But I kid you not, in 3D format for Blu-ray, they tried so hard to make that look 3D. Like this movie, even if it was bad looking in 3D, when my brother and I finally watched it the first time the way it was supposed to be seen, it looked great. Like I'm sitting here like, I'm not comparing it to Avatar, obviously, but if you look at all the other 3D schlock films that came out in this time, like I'm gonna tell you right now, Jaws 3D, I'm gonna compare it with Jaws 3D. Wow. The 3D in Friday Part 3 is so believable compared to Jaws 3D. So believable. It's a once in a lifetime experience that I think if we can't watch Nightmare 1 and 3, I would love if you can just sit and watch Friday 3 the way it's meant to be seen. Because it looks good and you will actually have a differing opinion. Because originally I thought, 3 is okay. But after watching it in that 3D aspect, dude, I'm sitting here like, now it's in my top 3 for Friday.
Yeah, I think the only thing that makes, to most cases, that makes 3 better than 1 is that 1, it's not only the fact that it's Jason that's the killer. Because if y'all don't know, the first film, Jason's not the killer, it's his mom. And the reveal is underwhelming because we were not introduced to Mrs. Voorhees until it is revealed that she is the killer. She's always been like, we're always seeing the POV shot of her killing people, but we're not introduced to her until Alice, the final girl, sees the wreckage, and then she just shows up out of nowhere saying, oh, I'm Mrs. Voorhees, the cook here. And then obviously we get the legend of Jason, stuff like that. But it's not only that, the third film is also the first time we've gotten Jason in the hockey mask. And again, if y'all didn't know this, when Jason came as the killer in the second film, he did not have the hockey mask on. He had a bag over his head, which R.I.P. Steve Dash, who was Jason at the time, had a hard time seeing, which contributes to most of the accidents he's had in the film. when they asked him to come back, he didn't want to because those films were very low budget and he had to pay for his own flight tickets and stuff like that. And not only that, he didn't want to go through all the beatings as he took in the second film, which is why they got Richard Brooker, RIP again. We've lost a lot of great Jason legends. When he took on the film, Richard Brooker is, I think he's the only Jason actor that's not American, because Richard Brooker was from England, but he was the first Jason to mantle the hockey mask, and then obviously it became a legend with the character since then on. Most people, as I said, a lot of people like Part 5 because was imposter Jason. Others like the remake, which came out in 2009. And then a lot of people like Part 4, which is the final chapter. And that's because of the Jason. The Jason in those films was a lot scarier, the way he was lit and the way the actors, Ted White and Derek Mears, the way they interpreted him as like he's barging through windows, he's flipping things around. He's lit so dark. I don't even think you can lit things dark, but the lighting is so dark on them that it just makes him so scarier. I like Part 2. I think it's just because maybe I'm tired of the hockey mask and would like to go back to the sack mask, even though the pillowcase mask is pretty dumb. Unless you got something.
That might end up happening. I know we're all trying to be very hopeful that we can get more Friday films, but I mean, who knows? What if the writer, what if the director fight again over who keeps the mask? And at that point, if Hollywood at this point is desperate to make a film, they can literally just give us the potato bag. I mean, they can, and we can just straight up accept it because it's Friday. Friday 2 is literally just a potato bag, so we can accept that.
I would actually like to see, like, if they decide to do a Freddy versus Jason. If Kane Hodder is already 70. But he's still pretty built. But if he comes back, I would like to see him as Potato Sack Jason, even though obviously we synonymously know him as Hockey Mask Jason. But it would be interesting. Who knows? But anyway, we're going to take another break right now, and we're going to go into our last segment. Hi, if you like our content and want to get more content, please follow us on Instagram at Tough Love Pictures, along with our YouTube under Tough Love Pictures. All right, welcome back. Our final film series we're going to talk about, which I think a lot of people are leaning the third film more, and this is coming from people who are not fans of the films in general, or the first film in general. It's The Exorcist and The Exorcist 3. Now, give and take, The Exorcist and The Exorcist 3 are the only good films in the entire series. And I'm not even joking. Like, you go from Exorcist 2, the 2 prequels, and then The Abomination we got not too long ago. The Exorcist and The Exorcist 3 are the only good films in the entire series. I think I like The Exorcist 3 a lot more than The Exorcist. And I know that's the film where if you grew up religious, Christian, Catholic, that's the one film where you were told to never watch, or if you have watched it, you'd be praying to God right after this film. Which is, I think, what I did when I saw the film in theaters, because I remember seeing it on the television, or the British call it the telly, and I was like, it's not that scary. When you watch it in theaters on D-Box, in case you don't know, D-Box is when the seat rattles. You get a whole
There's no way you saw that in D-Box.
I did.
Right. No, I can't even do that.
Well, I mean, you could turn off the rattling, but still, yeah, you get a whole different experience. I will say though, it does have good cinematography, which gets overlooked all the time, especially the one scene where you see Reagan and the statue of Pazuzu.
If y'all don't believe him, just go ahead. If you don't like watching horror films, just watch Sorcerer from the same director, and you understand exactly what he means. Yeah.
I know you said you've only seen parts of the third film, right? Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
I know you said you've only seen parts of the third film.
Yeah, I've seen only parts.
Okay, well, I mean, it's still usable, but why a lot of people lean towards the third film more than the original film is that a lot of it comes from people who are not fans of the film in general. Like, they can respect the arts and the craft that came into the first film, but without having it to be like your favorite horror film of all time, which is, I mean, favorite horror films of all time is very subjective, or I don't even know which is which, but people can be like The Exorcist or Halloween or The Nightmare on Elm Street. For me, it's The Witch. I like folklore horror. Robert Eggers is the GOAT, and yeah, and then it's Halloween. The Exorcist is actually number 5. Actually, no, yeah. I know I said I like The Exorcist 3 a lot more, but I separate that from the series in general. And the reason being that it's been a lot greater, as it's a greater film and trilogy or the series, is because it's not treated like a supernatural horror film as the other films are. Yes, there is some supernatural elements and stuff like that, but it's treated more like a crime thriller, if you will. In case y'all don't know, the first film is obviously supernatural. We know the first film. It stars Linda Blair as Reagan, who again gets possessed, and then the mom Chris has to call upon some exorcist to come and expel the evil, the demon out of her. And then it ends with Father Karras jumping out of the window when Pazuzu enters him, and then supposedly dying the at the end of the film. The Exorcist 3 is more, as I said, a crime thriller, noir film, because the characters in this film, believe it or not, are actually the same, like some of the same characters from the first film. It's just that they were just casted differently. The actor who played the original, if I could look this up, but I know George C. Scott. I know that George C. Scott played the cop in the third film, but he plays the cop or the detective that was in the first film. It's just that the actor who played the cop or the detective really in the first film died, I think, 3 years after The Exorcist. So if I can look it up real quick. Yeah. So the character was Kinderman. Let's see. Let's look at this real quick. Kinderman. Yeah. So some of the characters were recasted either because an actor died, or like the actor who played Father Joseph Dyer in the first film. I think he was under scrutiny at that time. I don't remember. He was an actual priest. And not to upset any of my fellow Catholics out there, especially one right in front of me, but he was a priest, if you get what I mean.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's funny enough, I like Brad Dourif in this film. Like I said, I've never liked the Chucky films. Those scared the shit out of me as a kid. They still do now, especially because I went to a kind of a haunted house near my house yesterday, and they had like life-size Chucky dolls, and they were talking too. So yeah, that was my nightmare coming true. But Brad Dourif, first of all, is a really great actor, and I think the Child's Play films really hinder that. But him as the Gemini killer, the entity in this film, is freaking amazing. Like I said, y'all should check out The Exorcist 3. Ignore all the other films in the franchise. There were 2 prequel films. I know that they're the same story. Well, supposed to be the same story involving the original Father Merrin, that though who was played by Stellan Skarsgård for both films. It's just that one had what people in the film community like to call studio interference, and then the other one was okay. It was Paul Schrader, who I think that was his name, Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver. He was given that job to redo his own film because I think he wrote both versions. They cut him out of directing on one film, and then when obviously how that turned out, they said, you know what, go back to directing what you originally wanted to do. Both films never came out the way they wanted it, and most people don't even know that there was a prequel. There were prequel films in general, but. And it's interesting because, like, the third film, Brad Dourif wasn't even supposed to be there. Jason Miller was supposed to be act as he was possessed. He was supposed to act like he was possessed, but at that time, Jason Miller was unfortunately under the influence a lot, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, we got to figure this out." So that's why you get that technique of moments where we're talking to the Gemini killer, though the characters they see Father Karras. We see the Gemini killer, but the characters in that film, they see Father Karras. And it's creepy. There's a scene where we're introduced to the Gemini killer in Brad Dourif's form, and he's talking about how the thrill he sees of a head being decapitated with blood coming out of the I'm sorry guys, I should have put a disclaimer on this one. And then that tone of his voice. Oh man. I don't know. You saw some of the clips with Brad Dourif, right? As far as I know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Brad Dourif.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so but I mean, I still like the first film. It's a classic. I mean, a lot of people were always held back on that because I mean, again, if you grew up religious, I didn't really grow up religious. I've been around religion and Christianity my whole life, but I never really grew up religious. But my parents sure have. My mom definitely. She's told me stories about when she was young and she saw The Exorcist at a young age, and then she turned off the television and then had to walk through a dark hallway to get back to her room. And then, sorry, mom, for telling this story. And then, unbeknownst to her, when she opened the door to her room, she forgot that she put a neatly placed doll on her bed. So that's literally the first thing she walks into, a dark room coming out of a dark hallway. Well, I can't imagine what she's gone through, but yeah, no, it's I know there's who was it? I keep forgetting Mike Flanagan. There you go. I know Mike Flanagan has his film coming out in 2026. I don't know if it's a remake or if it's another legacy sequel. But if you know anything about Mike Flanagan, he's done the Hunting series, Hill House and Bly Manor. I think he knows what he's doing. Regardless if it's a remake or if it's a legacy sequel or maybe just a film on its own. I'd rather have it be a film on its own and be like, oh yeah, this reminds me of a time when there was a exorcism that happened like 50 years ago. You know, it can be part of the same universe without having it to be connected to the films. I think that's something that people tend to like. It's like you want to make a sequel to a film, but you try to make it too much of a tie-in to the first film. I think you should try to make a sequel to a film was only making callbacks rather than just having to get a legacy character. Hell, I mean, what was it? Ellen Bernstein didn't even want to come back. All right. And well, we know how that turned out if you've seen it. It's just more,
I mean, money.
well, for her charity, but that's
Right. But still, the enticement of money.
yeah. Not only that, like they try to make it look like, and I'm not again not a theologian or whatever, but I'm just gonna say like not every religion ties in the same way as people have been trying to put it as. Because there's different theologies and doctrines and stuff like that. Something people don't really talk about, or they just ignore. They're like, oh no, it's all the same thing. No, it doesn't. Trust me. If you actually did the history and do the research and actually look into some of their textbooks and stuff like that, it's not the same. Which is what David Gordon Green was. I don't know why he was trying to attempt that. All I know is actually I don't even know what I know. All I know is that the first film is great. It's what kicked off a lot of films. I mean, were you gonna say something?
No, well, I was gonna just add on to your point. The first one's great, but the third one, I really do have to sit down and watch it because why is it that one is revered besides the first one? And if you think about it, it was written by the same guy who made the original novel. So of course, I mean, it's the one that Hollywood looked at and said, you know what, that'd be interesting to make into a film. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of why 3 does have its fan base, and I really do need to sit down and watch it when I'm actually able to, because based on what you've seen, on your experience, it's not really on the same level as The Exorcist in terms of like fear factor.
Yeah. The only thing, and I'm pretty sure you might have seen this, like, because it's all over the internet, but there's that one famous jump scare. And even if you've seen it on the internet multiple times, and then you watch it for the first time ever, it actually gets to you. Because what's different back then that's different now is that, like, you watch it now, and, like, if you've seen the clips before you've seen the film, and you're like, you know what's going to happen. And then you're like, oh, wow, okay, I did not see that coming, but I was supposed to see that coming. Like, it's weird. But I mean, scare factor, yes, the first film definitely takes the cake. And it's definitely like the only film where you don't sleep right for about a month until Christmas comes. The third film, it just leaves you just thinking with certain stuff on your mind. Yeah, I mean, maybe I do like the third film a lot more just because it's a whole different take of the series. But I know one last honorable mention we gotta talk about, and by we gotta talk about, I mean Jesus wanted to talk about was the Saw films. Again, there's not much arguments on those. I mean, aside from the third film, everything after Saw, you maybe even Saw 2, I'll count Saw 3, hasn't really been that good.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of weird. Like they haven't been really good because you can tell right after three, you can tell they're kind of running out of ideas. But there are some very unique ideas in those films. Like six, I really do like the carousel trap. That's crazy. But besides the point, I mean, the reason why I bring it up is because if you actually watch one and three, they really do. They besides interconnecting, because they really do make connections and kind of give you reasonings as to why it further like this whole story is happening. Three actually has really nice moments and like character development wise. Whereas in one, we only could see the mind of John Kramer through his victims. We could only really we didn't have a full picture of who he was in the first film. So that's what was nice about it because it was mysterious, right? It keeps you on edge because you don't know what he was going to do in all the flashbacks. But by three, you already know who he is, so you're already expecting it. But then it's like the writers kind of like do this whole twist. It's like I think with the third film, we finally started getting like the whole, oh yeah, we're gonna go and make a twist. So that's why every single person that's like these films will go to watch because they want to see what kind of trick they're gonna pull up our sleeve. And I think that's what three kind of established. And so when you look at it, I do like three. In terms of character development, it's been fleshed out. It should have stopped at three, personally. But you know, in the end, it's an IP, gonna make money, gonna print money, and I'm glad it did because again, I'm going off a little bit off topic, but my favorite films are one, three, and Saw X. That's where I'm gonna leave it.
Yeah. I know not a lot of people didn't like three because I mean, like you like the character. A lot of people didn't like first of all, sorry, mom. Second of all, a lot of people were very mixed on a slow ass motherfucking Jeff. Not my words, by the way. Amongst the horror community and people who've seen the films, Jeff, our character that we follow, they call him slow ass motherfucking Jeff because he took forever. But yes, he was fleshed out. And like, okay, I understand the slow part of him, like taking his time walking through this maze of traps. I do also get the fact that like he's taking slow on deciding to forgive certain people around his son's death. That part I get because you're conflicted on the inside. Like, should I forgive this person or let them die? But like taking your time to like go through this maze and your daughter, God knows where, might not make it to the end of the night. Yeah, that's like I get the frustration there. The frustration on him with the games, I don't side with because again he's conflicted on the inside. That again, do I forgive the witness who didn't speak out against the man who murdered my son? Do I forgive the judge for sentencing the man who lowered the sentencing term of my son's murderer? And do I forgive my son's murderer? So I understand like that's not a frustration. That's like what would you do in that situation? Yeah, I like three. Like you said, should have ended at three. I like four too. I didn't like five. I didn't like seven. I don't think I was really a huge fan of Jigsaw. I haven't seen Spiral yet, so I have to look at that. But it looks very interesting, and I think it's like if like we've said earlier, you take away that one film, separate from the rest of the films in the series, it's actually good on its own. But yeah, I think that's all I got. That's all I got for this episode. I might just do one more Halloween themed episode. I'll probably just do it by myself. But I don't know what I'm going to talk about because if I do talk about if I do get another Halloween themed episode, it'll probably be released on Halloween. I just don't know what to talk about. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it because there's a plethora of things we can talk about. Unless you got an idea.
I mean, well, I'm drawing a blank here, but
yeah, you get my point.
No, yeah, it's a lot.
Like I said, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Anyway, that's it for today's episode. Like I said, you can watch a first film or a third film. First films will always start it off. Third films might leave a legacy. And I don't know. We should always say they should always end at three. Because I'm trying to think, there's a lot of horror films that have bad sequels. I don't know where to lead off from here, other than unless you got something.
Every single IP has had a bad sequel.
What?
You know,
every single IP, yeah.
And Nightmare has had bad sequels.
Yeah, that's
Friday has bad sequels.
bad
Saw
sequel.
does. Every IP has bad sequels.
Yeah,
But we can't just eliminate them. They're here. They're gonna stay in the lore, unless they're cut off. Like Halloween has multiple timelines.
oh my
But
god.
point is, everyone's gonna love one film out of the franchise. And the good thing is that we're always happy to have opinions.
Yep. All right. Couldn't have said it better myself. Not a bad way to end this episode off. All right, you guys have a wonderful night, day, morning, whenever you're listening to this. And yeah, we'll see you. Hopefully, I guess hopefully we'll find something interesting to talk about. All right, y'all have a good time.